August 6th, 1945, at 8:15 in the morning. The sky above Hiroshima exploded. A single flash of light, brighter than the sun, erased an entire city in seconds. Buildings vanished, shadows burned into the ground, and over 70,000 people died instantly. The weapon that did it had a name: Little Boy. The first atomic bomb ever used in war. Most people believed no one near the explosion could possibly survive, but unbelievably, one man did. Burned, injured, barely alive. He somehow escaped Hiroshima. And just 3 days later, he arrived in another Japanese city, a city called Nagasaki, on the morning of August 9th, while explaining the Hiroshima explosion to his boss. The sky flashed again. Another atomic bomb, another city destroyed, and somehow the same man survived both explosions. His name was Tsutomu Yamaguchi, and his story is one of the most unbelievable survival stories in human history. Japan, in 1945. By 1945, World War II was reaching its final stage. Germany had already surrendered, but Japan refused to give up. Despite devastating losses, Japanese leaders believed surrender would destroy their nation. The United States faced a difficult decision. Invading Japan directly could cost hundreds of thousands of lives. So American leaders prepared a new weapon, a weapon unlike anything the world had ever seen: the atomic bomb. The business trip. Tsutomu Yamaguchi was not a soldier. He was a 29-year-old engineer working for Mitsubishi. In the summer of 1945, he had been sent to Hiroshima for a business trip. On the morning of August 6th, he was preparing to leave the city. He had just stepped outside his workplace when he looked up. Above him, a single American B-29 bomber flew across the sky moments later. A small object fell from the aircraft. Then everything turned white. The first explosion. The atomic bomb exploded nearly 600 meters above Hiroshima. The blast temperature reached millions of degrees. People close to the explosion simply vanished. Concrete buildings collapsed instantly. A shock wave moved faster than sound. Yamaguchi was only 3 kilometers from the explosion. The blast threw him violently into the air. His eardrums burst. His skin burned. For a moment, he believed he had died. But when he opened his eyes, the city around him had disappeared. Hiroshima had become a burning wasteland. Escaping the city despite severe burns, Yamaguchi managed to stand. The world around him looked like something from a nightmare. People walked through the ruins with burned skin hanging from their bodies. Many were silent, too shocked even to scream. Black rain began falling from the sky, contaminated with radioactive ash. Some survivors drank the water from rivers, desperate to survive, but many died soon after. Yamaguchi knew he had to escape. The train out of hell, amazingly. Some railway lines were still working. The next morning, Yamaguchi boarded a train leaving Hiroshima. He was burned, injured, and exhausted, but he was alive. He returned to his hometown, Nagasaki, a city that seemed peaceful compared to Hiroshima's destruction. Yamaguchi believed the nightmare was finally over. He was wrong. The second morning, August 9th, 1945. Yamaguchi arrived at his workplace in Nagasaki. His body was covered in bandages. His boss didn't believe his story. An entire city destroyed by one bomb. It sounded impossible. So Yamaguchi began describing what he had seen. The flash, the explosion, the burning city, and then, at exactly 11:02 a.m., the sky flashed again. The second atomic bomb. Another American bomber had arrived. This time, the bomb was called Fat Man. The explosion destroyed much of Nagasaki instantly, once again. Yamaguchi was thrown to the ground. Windows shattered, buildings collapsed, the world turned white. For the second time in 3 days, he had experienced an atomic explosion, surviving the impossible. The chances of surviving one atomic bomb were already extremely small, but surviving two, almost impossible. Yet somehow, Yamaguchi survived both. He managed to find his wife and infant son alive. They had taken shelter in a tunnel during the blast. For days, the family hid from radiation and chaos. Cities burned, hospitals collapsed, and thousands of injured survivors struggled to stay alive. The war ends. Just 6 days later, Japan finally surrendered. World War II was over. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki had changed the world forever. More than 200,000 people eventually died from the explosions and radiation. But among all those victims, Tsutomu Yamaguchi became known as something extraordinary, a double survivor. Speaking out for decades, Yamaguchi rarely spoke about his experience. The memories were too painful. But later in life, he decided to share his story. Not for fame, but as a warning. He spoke about the horrors of nuclear weapons, the suffering of survivors, and the responsibility humanity carries with such destructive power. The final message. In 2009, Japan officially recognized Tsutomu Yamaguchi as the only person confirmed to have survived both atomic bombings. He lived until the age of 93. His story reminds us of something important. War is often told through numbers, casualties, and victories. But behind every statistic, there are human lives, human suffering, and sometimes unbelievable survival. On 2 mornings in August 1945, the world changed forever. Cities vanished, nuclear weapons entered history, and somehow, one ordinary man lived through both explosions, not because he was lucky, not because he was special, but because history sometimes chooses unlikely survivors. And their stories remind us how fragile the world really is.